We're looking at John today again, and we're in this new series right now called What Happens Now, writing the next chapter of your story. We're looking at post-resurrection experiences with Jesus, and today we're looking at Peter and his encounter with Jesus on a beach. And it's an amazing thing. We're not privy to all the language that's talked about, the conversation here, but what we do know is that God is meeting with Peter, and he's meeting with the disciples, all of which have betrayed him. None of them were at the foot of the cross with Jesus. They should have been there. The only one there was John, who is close to Jesus, obviously. And so we find ourselves in a place just thinking through, like, what is it like when you disappoint someone? When is the last time that you disappointed someone really, really badly? And maybe you disappointed yourself, someone else, or maybe really at the end of the day, you disappointed the Lord with some of your choices. I think there are two primary ways in which we have a tendency to try to handle that situation. One is the big outward, robust kind of way of hardening our hearts. And the way that looks is that we find ourselves in conflict or disappointing somebody, we turn it back around on them. You know what? I don't have to perform for you. I don't have to be nice to you. This is who I am. If you want to be in a relationship with me, then you need to deal with me. I'm a lot. You have to deal with it, which is just really more of a way just pushing off and gaslighting somebody. At the end of the day, hardness of heart will lead you to a small life. It'll limit your relationships. It will close down your heart, and it will not open you to the experiences that God would have for you, so it's probably not the best strategy. The opposite strategy is exactly that, the opposite strategy. It is a strategy basically that says, you know what, someone did something to me, I broke faith with someone, something happened, and now my entire future has been stolen from me. I can never be the same person I was before, or I can't even be a better version of what I was before. I'm stuck, I'm broken. This is kind of that victim mentality where you say, you know what, I'm just always gonna be busted up. That relationship is never gonna be right again. Those people I'm never gonna be in relationship with again. How can God turn back and forgive me? I know he's a forgiving God, but man, I really blew it this time. Not little forgiveness, I don't need little forgiveness, I need huge forgiveness. Will God even do that for me? And I think where we find ourselves in the text today, this is some of the stuff that Peter's wrestling with. He absolutely ran away from hardness of heart, but he ran towards maybe self-pity and he ran towards feeling dejected. He ran towards feeling like he wasn't enough and that maybe his life would never be the same. Now, all of this has kind of happened to all the disciples in some way because they've all betrayed Jesus. And then I think the reason for that is that partly Jesus didn't turn out to be who they thought he was supposed to be. That he died on a cross. If this is supposed to be God's anointed, if this is the chosen one, how is he hung on a cross? We all know the scripture teaches that anyone hung on a tree is cursed. And so how could God's anointed one, the Messiah, be cursed? It doesn't make any sense to them. They were confused and frustrated. They acted out in terrible ways and they kind of abandoned Jesus. So Peter himself, I think, feels this more deeply than anybody else. And we find ourselves in the place of meeting Jesus and Peter with the disciples after he has died and after he's been resurrected. And we're gonna look today not so much at how Peter feels about this, we're gonna look at that a little bit, but we're gonna look at Jesus' strategic way in which he commissions Peter for future ministry and forgives him for his sins. Because in a lot of these things we find ourselves. This is John chapter 21, verse 4. Early in the morning, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples did not realize that it was Jesus. Let's take the last part of this first. We already have seen numerous times in which people who knew Jesus very well found themselves not recognizing him. Mary Magdalene at the tomb, she thinks he's a gardener. Jesus himself, when he comes into the upper room, what's happening there? He comes into this upper room, he presents himself and he says, guys, it's me. Remember where they put the nails in my hand? This is the side, take a look at it. This is where the spear went in. It is really me. There seems to be something fundamentally different about Jesus after the resurrection, that his body, his resurrected body is different than ours. And that, by the way, is a promise of the gospel that when you and I have moved from this life into the next life, we will be resurrected with bodies. We're not gonna be disembodied spirits. We're not ghosts, we're not angels. We're human beings who have a different form, and Jesus seems to possess that form. So when they see Jesus standing on the shore, they didn't recognize that it was Jesus. But why does Jesus meet them in the morning? Now this is part of Jesus' strategy. It's not just that he woke up and said, you know what, today's a good day for me to meet with Peter and the disciples. No, he has some strategy behind it. It's early in the morning. The first thing that you need to know is that the Jewish calendar today and in Jesus' day operated very differently than ours does. Jewish high holidays like Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, start in the evening and then go to the morning, right? Because they follow the order of creation by which God created the world. Like in Genesis 1:5, God called the light day and the darkness he called night. And there was evening and there was morning the first day. So what we see here is he starts with, like, what is a day? Remember, he's creating the world. What is a day? Well, a day is a day that's coming out of darkness, right? Is composed of day and night. And there was evening and there was morning. There was evening and morning. So the Jewish calendar, the day starts in the evening. Why? Well, because in the ancient world, ancient rabbinic traditions taught that the night was the time in which you entrusted yourself to the Lord. So nighttime was filled with trust and surrender. Why? Well, because at night we're most vulnerable. We're not awake, we can't protect ourselves, and we are at the mercy of whatever would come to us, especially in the ancient world. Somebody breaks in, an animal tears us apart, we are in a place of vulnerability. And even to this day, people still follow this calendaring. But beyond that, it was the idea of trust and surrender. I trust you, God, with my life. I close my eyes in this world and I go to sleep, and you watch over my dreams. You watch over my life. You watch over my soul. You watch over who I am. There are even really old prayers that maybe some of you prayed when you were young. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep, right? The idea essentially is you watch over me, and at night you give everything back to me. There's a Jewish prayer in the morning right now that many Jews pray. God, thank you for giving me back my soul in the day. So night was considered the darkness. It was considered the time of trust, and we are at the mercy of God. And then the morning comes, and there is renewal and restoration. So when Jesus chooses the morning, he chooses it strategically because it says, you have trusted me through the darkness. And you and I need to know this is a dark experience for them right now before they see Jesus again. Because you and I look at Good Friday, which is the day of Jesus' death. We call it Good Friday because we know the end of the story, that the death is not the last word, that resurrection's coming. But for the disciples, they didn't know that in the moment. They were living this real time. So for them, what we call Good Friday is the worst day of their life because Jesus had been crucified. Certainly he was not who we thought he was, and certainly we were fools for following him. Why in the world did all of this happen when it turned out to be nothing? And yet we find Jesus early in the morning. And listen to this example of what I'm talking about. You don't know this verse necessarily, but you've heard the last part of it probably a lot if you've been in the church. Lamentations 3:22 and 3:23. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed. For his compassions never fail us. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. We even have great hymns that came out of this. Great is your faithfulness, O Lord. Because of the Lord's great love, we're not consumed. In other words, we fall down, we fail, but yet he doesn't destroy us. We're not consumed by his anger. For his compassion leads his anger. He doesn't come first with anger, he comes with compassion. They are new every morning. Why? Because the morning is the place of recreation. The morning is the time in which we find all the things new that God has made. The birds are chirping, the sun has arisen, and there God is present, his presence manifest. And so every Jewish person would know this. And so when they would hear the lamentation taught, they would know every morning, yes, great is your faithfulness. Why? Because I endured the night. I trusted you with me and you delivered me through the darkness. And I think sometimes, when we're in that place of darkness and hardness and challenge, we think to ourselves, you know what? There's no future for us. Like, how can I ever come out of this? I feel so depressed. I'm so anxious. I'm so worried. I'm so overwhelmed. I just went through the divorce. We got the cancer diagnosis, whatever it was. That season of darkness is all about trust. Saying, God, I trust you. I don't know how to do this on my own. I need you. I need your hope. And then the morning comes and we get to celebrate. Every morning we wake up and God is present. Here's our big idea for today. Your past does not erase your purpose. Your past does not erase your purpose. Whatever you've gone through, whatever hard thing that you've challenged, even if you've gone through something really hard and it was your own fault, that does not steal God's purpose for your future. All we do as followers of Jesus is we come to him, we repent, we turn from our ways, and we point ourselves at Jesus. And that's what we do over and over again. We're gonna do that every single day until we see him face to face. But your past doesn't erase your purpose. When the Lord gives you a purpose and you fail at that purpose, he says, get up again, continue, walk with me, press on through this difficulty in your life. You're not done. And some of you just need to hear that today. You're not done. You need to know that today is the day that you realize I'm not done. God is not finished with me. We'll talk more about that in just a few minutes. But Peter feels this really, here's the scene. The disciples have been out all night fishing. They come and they see Jesus on the shore. The boat is about 300 feet away from where they are. It's been a terrible day of fishing for them. And they're professional fishermen. These guys don't really have bad days of fishing. They have relatively bad days, but they caught absolutely nothing. So about a year ago, I was hanging out with one of our elders and a friend of mine. His name's Andy Lamb, and another guy, Johnny, that attends the church. And they're just great guys. I love them a lot. And we were out, we were on Johnny's boat, and we were St. Augustine area, offshore. We're about 5 miles out, just kind of bouncing around on the waves, and we were fishing. And what you need to know is these guys are great fishermen, and I am not. I don't fish. I have fantasies that when I get old enough, that I'll just become a great fisherman. But right now, I just don't fish very often. I fish twice in the ocean. And so we're out there, and they make sure everything, I don't know how to do the knots. I don't know, that's not my thing. They do the knots, they do the whole thing. I throw it over, this is what I know how to do, right? And so I get over there, I throw it out, and Andy's like, you gotta be patient. And I'm like, yeah, I know, it's gonna take some, boom, all of a sudden I'm like, I got something, and I start pulling them in, right? Pulling them in, nice fish, good fish, right? And then I was like, man, that's great, I'm done for the day. This is fair, woo, yes. And then I pop it out there again, and it's like 20 seconds, it hits again. And Andy's not getting anything whatsoever over here. He's going, good job, Mike, good job. Like he's super encouraging. And I get another one out there, shark. I'm like, yeah, shark, I'm pulling this sucker in. And it's awesome. Now he's a little upset. He's not encouraging me anymore. He's like, I don't know what's going on right now. And he throw it out there again, 4 fish, woo, right again. He goes, I'm coming over to that side of the boat. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. I'll go over here. I pop it up. Oh man, and he cannot catch, it's like 3 hours of this, right? And he can't catch a fish. And the whole purpose of this story is just to tell you, I'm a better fisherman than Andy. That's it. That was the whole purpose of the story. So Jesus is on the beach. Jesus is on the beach. They have spent the entire night not catching anything. And Jesus calls out to them in verse 5. He called out to them, friends, haven't you any fish? No, they answered. This is an annoying question. This is a frustrating question, really. He can see that they don't have any fish, right? He can see that they're not pulling anything in when they're coming in. That's kind of an annoying question. He called out to them, friends, haven't you any fish? And they're like, no. Guy on the shore that we don't know. No, we don't have any fish. Now, why did Jesus ask this question? I think Jesus asked this question because he was trying to elicit something more from them, something deeper than this. And I think this question is very similar to another question that was asked early in Genesis. So Adam and Eve have sinned, and they have introduced sin into the world. First, it stains them, and it stains their relationship with God. So Adam turns to Eve for the first time in all of creation, however long they were together. And I think we tend to think Adam and Eve were together for like 5 minutes. That's not what it was. They were together for significant periods of time, right? And so Adam turns to her and he goes, this girl. And she turns to me, how about you? And then that happens. And then God, who was used to walking with them, as the Bible teaches us, in the garden in the cool of the day, like when the day gets less hot. So God came like he usually did. And when he came to them, he asks a question. And the question is, Adam, where are you? Now this is God. This is the omnipotent God, right? The all-knowing God. He knows everything. He knows not just what's happening now, it's gonna happen in 10,000 years, he knows everything, right? So he's not asking this question to get information, he's asking a rhetorical question. Where are you? And I think it's a really good question because Adam and Eve have no idea where they are right now because everything about their life just changed fundamentally. Now, I'm suspicious of this present that God gave to me, and she is suspicious of me now. God was functionally saying, you have lost yourself. You have lost yourself, Adam. You have lost yourself, Eve. You don't know where you are now. And I think this is the question that Jesus is asking when he's kind to them. He's not jerky about it. He says, friends, where are your fish, right? And what he's doing right here is he's basically reminding them, you guys have lost your way. Why? How? Well, because when Jesus first meets them, especially, Peter, James, John, the disciples are present because they're fishermen. And when he talks to them after fishing, he says to them, guys, I want you to follow me. And weirdly, because, Jesus is God. There's something different about him. Weirdly, they say, yes, we'll follow you. They leave their father, who's the fisherman, with them. This is a family business. And they're like, yeah, we'll follow you. And he says, good, because I'm gonna make you fishers of men. And now what's happened is they're devastated. Peter is undone by his betrayal. And make no mistake, Peter's betrayal is worse because Jesus foretold it. And Peter said, not me. This could happen to anybody else, but not me. And he's living in the shame of that. And what did they do when that happened? Well, they were told to go back to Galilee, which is home. And when they arrived back to familiar places, they went back to familiar things. Let's get in the boat. Why? Because we know how to do this. This is what we know how to do. And sometimes when you and I feel like we fail with God or with someone else, we go back sometimes to the things that we thought were working before, but they don't work anymore. His question is, do you have any fish? And the answer is no. Why? Because you and I don't get to go back to the things that used to work anymore. Because when they worked, it's because Jesus was there with us in them. But now, he's not there with them in the same way. They're trying to go back to the old things. Some of us go back to old relationships. And here's what's crazy about it. You and I know this a little bit, but it's different to know it and experience it. Sometimes we even go back to the dysfunctional things because they're comfortable and familiar. They're like, I don't know where I'm going right now. I'd rather go back to something abusive and ugly than to stay in the place of unsurety, insecurity. And so he's in the background going, hey guys, how's that working for you? Do you have any fish? The answer is no. You don't have any fish because I'm not in fishing with you anymore. I'm in making you fishers of men. And I'm gonna empower that destiny for you. I'm gonna empower that future for you. But this old thing that was yours, I don't empower that anymore. I'm not present with you in that anymore. This is not what I'm doing. So he does something crazy. Verse 6, he said, here's what I want you guys to do. Throw your net on the right side of the boat and you'll find some fish, right? Hold on a second. These are professional fishermen. And his suggestion is you can't get any fish over here. Why don't you go over here and get some fish? That's dumb. It doesn't actually make any sense. So why does Jesus seemingly make a dumb statement to them here? Well, I think it's because it's not dumb, but I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to say, I want you to trust me. So a professional fisherman would go, listen, it doesn't make a difference where you are. When you're down far enough, it doesn't matter if you're on the right or the left, you're right there in the same place. It's foolishness. But for some reason, again, even though they don't know it's Jesus, they do what he says. I think sometimes God gives us a next step without a map. And what I mean by that is, very rarely does God give the map. Here's why. If he said to you, in the next 5 years, here are the 10 things that I've laid out on your path, right? And you and I go, awesome. This is great. I get to walk in and I can know where I'm going. But you know what would also happen simultaneously? We wouldn't need God anymore. We'd be like, I know where the next blessing is. I'll just hold off. I'll just go from thing to thing to thing. And I don't need you at all. So sometimes God gives you and I a solution that seems to make no sense to us. This is why the Bible teaches you and me, do not lean on your own understanding, but acknowledge him in all your ways, and he's gonna make your straight path, right? So he's like, I don't want you to trust in your wisdom and your knowledge all the time. What I want you to do is when I give you something that doesn't seem to make sense for you, I want you to trust me, because on the other side of your trust is where my blessing is. And so when they lowered the thing, they obeyed him. When they lowered down the thing, too many fish were pulled up. They could not pull the nets into the boat because God's supernatural, because again, that's not what fish do. They don't go, oh, a net, let's jump in, right? So they go, boom, they pull this in because they were obedient. On the other side of their obedience was blessing. Everything they needed and more. Everything they needed and more. And the same thing's true for you. Like if you're in that place right now where you're just trying to figure out what's the next step and you're asking God for the map, he's not gonna give it to you because he loves you, and his economy is not based on whether or not you're obedient, it's whether or not you are faith-filled. Because when you are faith-filled, you will walk in obedience. And some of you just need to know that today. You just need to be reminded that God is going to bless, but he's asking for you to obey. He's asking for you to trust him first and then walk in that obedience. And for some of you right now who are just stuck in the old ways, you're back in the familiar patterns. You know, you thought, we all do this. You're like, I'm just gonna be really good with my eating. And then you have a donut. And then you're like, I had a donut. I might as well have 12. I had a drink. I haven't drank a long, long time. I know it's not good for me. I might as well have 12. I slept with somebody, I got rid of that part of my life. I don't sleep with the wrong people, but I failed. And then just dive right back in. Why? Because we go back to what is like comfortable to us, even if it's dysfunctional, because we don't want to have trust in him until we actually start trusting him. And then you recognize every time you trust him, on the other side of that trust, God blesses. He doesn't always bless with fish. Sometimes he blesses with peace and joy and happiness that we've never had before because he is present with us, but he always blesses. Throw your net on the right side of the boat and you'll find some. When they did, they were unable to haul in the net because of the large number of fish. It shouldn't have worked. It shouldn't have worked, but it did work. Why? Because God supernaturally empowered it. Whatever your next step is, you don't want to walk in your strength. I know you're talented. We have some great people here, smart people here. I know you're talented. I know you have abilities, but your talent and your abilities will take you here. The Lord will take you wherever he desires. And that's going to be better than what you desire on your own. You're like, no, I just want a bunch of money. Until you get a bunch of money and realize this actually didn't fill my heart, right? Whatever it is that you desire apart from the Lord will ultimately end up betraying you until you give your desires to the Lord and you say, Lord, I want what you want. And this is what he's in the process of doing with Peter right now. Now, he's down here on the beach, Jesus, he's got fish on a coal fire. This is a cool connection. We don't have time to look at these verses, but you can find them in Luke chapter 5, verses 1 through 11. When Jesus called Peter the first time after a failed night of fishing, that's what happened. The first time Jesus said, I want you to be a fisher of men. This was after a failed night of fishing. The moment is not just a memory. This moment right here is not just a memory. It's a memory trigger for Peter because he's got this coal fire thing going. And we'll take a look at that in just 1 second. I want you to see it in just a second. Verse 7. Verse 7. Then the disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, it is the Lord. So they're looking out there. There's a coal fire out there waiting for them. And he says, John looks at him and says, it's the Lord. Can we just look at John again? He's hilarious. Okay. Then the disciple John, whom Jesus loved, right? Some translations say, then the disciple whom Jesus loved the most said, it's amazing. John's just like, I'm Jesus's guy and I'm gonna tell everyone forever. Verse 7, then the disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, it is the Lord. So they see the miracle. John quickly makes the connection and goes, we've seen him do this with fish before. Peter hears it, immediately jumps overboard. Now, they're still 300 feet out. They can't get the boat close very quickly. So what does Peter do? He jumps. He ties his outer garment around him, jumps into the water. And you need to understand that Peter diving into the water is both impulsive and repentant. This is Peter, he's always impulsive, right? He cuts off the Roman's ear. He jumps into the water when he sees Jesus walking on water and begins to walk on water. Peter is always the first one. He does not have a lot of impulse control, but he has a lot of love. And because of that, it's endearing, it's beautiful. It's not that dysfunctional kind of lack of impulse control. Peter's just like, wherever you want me to go, whatever you want me to do. This is why the shame is so terrible, because it violated his own sense of identity. He's like, I just betrayed you. I just did the wrong thing. So now that's Jesus on the shore. I want to get there. I want to get there right now, faster than anyone else. I want to talk with him because I need him. I need to be restored. And Peter still feels completely unworthy of all of that. And yet, God meets him, Jesus meets him here. I think you just need to realize that the Lord is not in the background thinking to himself, man, you've blown it. I think he's in the background going, run to me. And when you run to me, I will meet you there. And what you're gonna find is something more beautiful than what you think. You think he's just gonna tear you apart. We had an encounter with somebody this last week who it's not a staff person or anything. It's just like somebody who just blew up their life, disappointed their family, disappointed their friends, their church. And I think the shame that comes along with that sometimes, like they came to confess. And I think they expected us just to blast them. How could you? Why didn't you? Who didn't you call? Why weren't you accountable? I think that's the Christian way for some reason. And I think we were firm, and we'll talk about sin in a second. I think we were firm, but we said, we're not gonna tear you apart. We need you to be in community. We need you to be connected to the church. We need you to dial in because your spiritual life has been dialed out for a while. And when you walk by yourself outside the church, when you walk by yourself outside of other followers of Jesus, you are easy prey because we need each other. I need you and you need me. Some of us feel that way today, that we've disappointed him. It's beyond help. It's not beyond help. Up on the screen, your past does not erase your purpose. Know it. Your past does not erase your purpose. If you let him down, get back up. Get back up. I'm telling you to be tougher than you are right now. If you failed and you feel full of shame, get back up and start walking towards him again. When you meet him, he will heal you. This is what he does. It's not just that he does this, it's who he is. It's the very nature of God to do that. Verse 8. The other disciples followed in the boat, towing a net full of fish, for they were not far from the shore, about 100 yards, 300 feet. When they landed, they saw a fire of burning coals there with fish on it and some bread. Everyone say burning coals. I love this. This means a charcoal fire, right? So in the next slide, there's a word, right? This is the Greek word anthrakia, right? It's only used in John 18:18 and here. And let me just talk about words for a second, because I think it's super important for you to understand. Sometimes you'll see multiple words in the English and one word representing these multiple words in the Greek, right? This is Greek. And so the reason for that is because words are like containers, right? There's a lot of room inside of every word. I did this illustration a while back. If you are depressed, if I tell you I'm depressed, what have I told you? Absolutely nothing. Why? Well, because if I told you I was depressed, it just might mean I hit every red light on the way home. So depressing. I cannot believe that happened to me, right? Or it could mean I'm about to take my life. The word means different things. There's a lot of room inside those words. Same thing in translation. In translation, charcoal fire is 2 words, but it's just this one word. We see this over and over again in the Bible. But it's only used in John 18:18. So Jesus is doing something really strategic here with Peter, because it was around a charcoal fire that something happened that changed Peter's life. So let's look at John 18:18 real quick here. John 18:18, it was cold, and the servants and officials stood around a fire, anthrakia, that they had made to keep warm. Peter also was standing with them, warming himself. One of the high priest's servants, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, challenged him. Didn't I see you with Jesus in the garden, Peter? Didn't I see you with Jesus in the garden? Right? Again, Peter denied it, and at the moment, a rooster began to crow. Jesus told him, listen, Peter, you'll know that you've denied me 3 times when a rooster crows. This is that moment. This is the moment of his shame, where he realizes not just that I've done something wrong, but that Jesus knew it, he was right, and I followed through on it. It was around a charcoal fire. So Jesus here, when he calls him back and says, we need to talk, he's not avoiding what happened. This is so important, guys. Tune in. Jesus is not avoiding the place of Peter's failure. He's intentionally recreating it so that he can redeem it. I want you to see this. This is so good. Let's be clear. God doesn't go back to your past and fix it in the way that you and I often think it works. Let's look at it up on the screen, a principle. Jesus doesn't restore you by erasing the memory. He rewrites the meaning of your past. Let's take a look at it again. Jesus doesn't restore you by erasing the memory. He's just not gonna do that. He's not gonna take the thing away. When you were hurt really, really bad, you're not gonna wake up one day and go, what was that about? Because those are just small little insults. We get rid of those. Our brain takes those away. But big traumas and things like that, they never actually just go away. We bear them forever. So that's not what Jesus is gonna do for you, right? But what he does do is he helps rewrite the meaning of your past. Let me tell you a way in which we do this a lot. I hear Christians do this a lot, that's broken and messed up, all right? Here's how it happens. So hypothetical, you somehow were abused when you were a child, like I was, right? You were abused when you were a child, something terrible happened to you, right? And in that moment, like many years down the road, things have happened, and you get to this place where you say to yourself and everyone else, you say things like this: you know what? I'm glad I went through those things, because those things made me who I am today. Now, you and I have heard that before. We've heard people say that, and we think that's really wise. What great growth. No, it's not. It's not wise. Here's the reason why. Because when we go all the way back to the thing that happened here, we can't say that the thing that happened actually wasn't an evil. It wasn't something good that was used to change us. And you go, well, what about the Bible verses that we know that say things like, all things work together for the good of those who are called according to his purposes? What I'm suggesting is that Joseph handled this in the right way in the Old Testament. Joseph was the son of his father who loved him way more than the 11 other sons. He loved him way more. And obviously just made it known. He's not the guy who said, I love all of you equally. He's like, no, I love Joseph and the rest of you are okay, right? And as a result of that, they got really offended and mad and jealous. So what they did one day is they took him, they bound him, they threw him in a pit, and they sold him into slavery into Egypt. Because God was with Joseph and Joseph was a righteous man, God enabled every blessing Joseph needed to rise to second in command of all of Egypt. He was only second to Pharaoh himself. Pharaoh said that. He goes, I hereby give you my kingdom except for the throne. So Joseph could control an army. Joseph could have someone killed at whatever. So one day, many years down the road, his brothers come to him and they're begging because there's a famine all through Egypt and around the world that Joseph has prepared Egypt for. Now watch this. Joseph stands before him. He's overwhelmed, emotionally. They don't recognize him. Why? Because he looks like an Egyptian now. He speaks their language. He has the makeup. He's got the outfit. He's an Egyptian, what you would imagine Egyptian looking like, right? But he presents himself to them and says, I am Joseph, your brother. And they are terrified. Why are they terrified? Because they know they're done. They're cooked, right? This is it. We're done, right? But because he loves God, he has mercy on them. But here's what he says. What you meant for evil, God meant for good. This is the way we should think about these things, right? Why? Because when you go back and you say, and here's how it works. You go back and you say, this was evil, this was terrible, this abuse was never good, and it never will be good, ever, 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 ever. Why? Because if you say it was good, here's what happens. You place a new boundary in your heart that accepts behavior like that into your life. This is why somebody who's sexually abused when they're young, sometimes, more often than the general population by multiples, grows up to sexually abuse someone else. Why? Because somewhere along the way when they were young, and this was not their fault, it was a coping mechanism, they said to themselves things like this, like, Dad's not a bad person. This is a special thing between us. And at some point, when I was a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child, but when I became a man, an adult, I gotta put these childish thoughts and reasonings away. We need to look at that and go, no, this was evil. This was evil and terrible. And once you've done that, then all these things can work together. Why? Because we're at this place where we go, this is evil, but now I get to look at my life and know the Lord has walked with me every day of my life and he's brought blessing after blessing after blessing. So the new person that you are, the new creation that you are today, the new soul that God has created inside of you, that's the gift of the Lord. And that's what brings the joy of the Lord. And that brings the peace of the Lord. And that brings the healing of the Lord. But never say that an evil thing is good or a good thing is evil. It destroys the very nature of us being able to discern what is right and wrong. So we get to have God's presence, even though dark and terrible things have happened to us. And we remember, just like the Jewish world behind us remembers, that the morning comes and all things are new. His mercies are new every morning. But then let's flip it for a second, talk for a second about like what happens when you're dealing with other people and they're going through really hard things. Restoration without repentance is just denial in disguise. Let's go. There we go. Restoration without repentance is just denial in disguise. What do you mean by that, Pastor Mike? Here's what I mean. The next time that you're sitting with somebody and they've like sinned, like with this guy I was telling you about, don't just say, you know what, bro, it's okay. Everybody has faults. You messed up. You're human, no big deal. I find that the reason why we end up giving kind of platitudes like that to people is not because of them, but because of us, and we're uncomfortable in sitting with someone in pain. And that might speak to this issue of the fact that we've never really resolved some of the stuff going on inside of us. And so what I would say to you is that the next time somebody comes and they say, I blew up my life and here's my sin. And this guy admitted everything, said, I blew up my life. I'm at fault. You can come right next to him in a situation like that and say, you did. You messed it up. And there'll be consequences for you in your family and the things that are happening down the road. And you're gonna have to bear those things. But here's what the Bible teaches us, guys. I need you to tune in because this will change your life and the way you talk to other people. The Bible's 100% clear on this issue, right? It says that when someone is caught in a sin, not even they come to you like this guy did, but when you are caught in a sin, you who are spiritual should restore them gently. Gently. This is one of the big failings of the church today is when somebody falls down, we smack them, you know? And if you're spiritual, meaning if you're godly, you move into that space with that broken person. You let them process, you listen to them. You don't need to be the person with all the answers. You can point them to someone else with answers, but you're the one that just bears the weight because we were called to bear each other's burdens. That's what the Bible teaches us. And when we become those people in culture and in the world, the whole world begins to relate to us differently. Why? Because we might be the only people who are willing to listen and love at the same time. And when we become those people, it changes our work environment, it changes our marriages, it changes everything. Here's how this thing goes. Peter now right in front of Jesus. He says, when they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, do you agape me more than these? So let's look at this. In your Bible, I put the Greek in here for you because I want you to see it's more rich than like the way our Bibles talk about it. Our Bibles say this 3 times. Jesus comes to him and says, Peter, do you love me? And he says, you know I love you, Lord. Second time, Peter, you know I love you? You know I love you, Lord. Third time, Peter, do you love me? You know I love you, Lord. And then Peter was discouraged, the Bible says. But let's look at this. There are different words used for love here. Do you love me? Do you agape me more than these? So first thing he asks is, do you love me with a godlike sacrificial love? That's what agape love is. Godlike sacrificial love. The love of Jesus on the cross for us, to die on the cross for us, was agape love. Do you love me like that? And I love that Peter is in a real place where he's not people-pleasing Jesus. He could have easily turned around and go, Jesus, you know I agape you. He says, no, I phileo you. I love you like a brother. I love you like a friend. We're close, but I don't love you with a God-like love. Why? Because he's telling the truth. He just didn't love him that way. He didn't sacrifice for him. He didn't give his life for him. He abandoned him in the cross. Go to the next one. Again, Jesus said, do you agape me, Peter? And he answered, yes, Lord, you know that I phileo you. I love you like a brother, like a friend. He's not willing to go up and say, I love you with a God-like love, a sacrificial love. Jesus said, I want you to take care of my sheep. The second time he says this. Why? Why is that important? Here's why. Because again, in rabbinical tradition, when I, as a rabbi, give to you a flock of sheep, people, and I say, I want you to watch over them and guide them and lead them spiritually, the assumption in Judaism is you have the character to do that. So when Jesus speaks to Peter, he's saying to him, you have the character to do this. You are this person. And he's like, I'm not the person. Like, I don't agape you. I phileo you, you're my friend, but I don't agape you. And then the third time he said to him, do you phileo me, Peter? Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him a third time. He said, Lord, you know all things. You know that I phileo you. And Jesus said, then feed my sheep, Peter. See, Peter never went up to the level that Jesus wanted him to go up to, but Jesus came down and met Peter where he was. He said, look, I know that you don't love me the way that I want you to love me right now. I know that you're not all in the way that I want you to be. I know you don't love me with a God-like love, and you are right. But I will start and accept that you love me with a brotherly love, that we're friends, and we'll build from there. And they did, because Peter becomes one of the cornerstone pieces of the church and the future of the church, and all that he did was magnificent because it changed over time. And you know what? Peter did agape Jesus eventually, because you see it through his life. The very ending of his life, Peter, through tradition, tells us that he's crucified like Jesus is. But because he loved him so much, because he agape him so much, he said, I don't want to be crucified like Jesus. Turn me upside down. And he was crucified upside down. He came to agape in his love. He came to agape, but he was in the place of brokenness still. And Jesus said, we'll start here. We'll continue. We'll build. And then I'll release you. And you're gonna do great things, Peter, through me. Your past does not erase your purpose. His mercies are new every morning. After night, there is always the morning. Amen.